This is my second season using this butterfly enclosure. It's also protected on an outdoor patio. It's a covered patio. They do have sun and wind, and they do get the moisture from the air. I have to weigh it down because it is just netting. I usually line it with cardboard. I line underneath with cardboard. It has already gotten some holes in it, and I've had to tape it up on the edges. So I probably wouldn't recommend this one to someone, but there's plenty of options if you look at them on the internet. One of the main reasons I opted for this enclosure is it has a double zipper and it has a flap of fabric all the way around the zipper that protects it from caterpillars adhering to the zipper when they change into their chrysalises. Monarch butterflies don't do this as much as other types of butterflies like black swallowtails. But anyway, pardon all the poop, that's the frass. I just replaced all the fresh milkweed in here. And usually when you move the caterpillars, they kind of play dead for a little bit. This is one that was at the end of the leaves on that stem. So they'll lay there for a little while on their fresh leaves, and then they'll start to move around again when it's safe. Before I show you my simple process of bringing the monarch butterflies in as eggs and raising them to adults, I wanted to show you the 4 caterpillars I have now in the enclosure. They came in as eggs. But there are different stages. Here's a tiny one. This is the second instar out of 5 stages, and this was his old leaf. I usually take the old leaves and place them next to the new plant or on top of a new leaf, and they make their way over. I never really touch caterpillars. I try to have as little interaction with them as possible. I just want to provide a safe place for them to grow and change and become adult butterflies. This little guy is on swamp milkweed. I have 3 different types of milkweed in my yard. Whenever you see little holes on milkweed leaves, you know that a caterpillar either was there or is nearby still. So this is the very next morning, and you can see that plate is covered with poop. So it's just like regular pets or live things that you take care of in your home. Every day you give them fresh water and you clean up their poop. See, these are the babies, so they don't poop as much. They're just tiny, tiny flakes. But these guys are very close to going off to turn into their chrysalises. So they just eat and poop. I usually push them up against the netting, so when they are ready to change into their chrysalis, they just climb onto the netting. And monarch butterflies tend to always go upward to the very top of whatever enclosure you have, and they start to form a very distinctive J formation. Here's one guy, he's on his way to find a good spot to hang. And here's one, he's hanging already, as you can see. He's getting into position. When I checked a little while later, these 2 are already side by side in their J positions. And I have seen them turn into their chrysalises. It's quite a process. I used to think that they actually covered themselves up and encased themselves in a green coating, but it's actually the opposite. If you watch them, their skin splits down the middle and off, and it reveals their new form underneath, which is the green chrysalis, and it's speckled in gold. It's very pretty. I wish I was able to capture that on video for you, but there are videos available on the internet if you search for the process. Now that my first grouping of caterpillars have gone to the top of the enclosure, I'm going to bring in new eggs. These are a few choppy edits of me trying to focus in on the eggs and not waste your time. But I recently did a short on finding monarch eggs and how I bend the leaves to identify that pointy little football shape. This will be my last batch of eggs brought in for the season because depending on the weather, the timing, and the generation of monarchs, many of them will migrate at the end of our season here in Rhode Island. I only bring in monarchs as eggs, and usually the freshest eggs if I see a butterfly in my garden that day. Monarchs can have a lot of problems with parasitic insects laying eggs inside caterpillars, so I feel they have the best chance for survival if I bring them in as eggs and never bring them in as caterpillars that are found in my yard or else. So this is my simple process of raising monarch butterflies from eggs, protecting them inside an enclosure, and keeping their milkweed food fresh. It started with a recycled Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup. but I've recently purchased some clean cups and lids from Amazon. The straw indent section is the perfect place for a milkweed stem to keep it secure and also protect the small caterpillars from falling into any water in open containers. While the small cups are perfect for the tiny eggs and tiny caterpillars, once they get larger, I switch over to this gallon water jug and I use these foam plates. I usually cut it out a little nicer. This protects all the frass from going all over the bottom of the enclosure, and it's easy to just brush off daily. On the lid, I use an X-Acto knife to make little slices in a star shape similar to the beverage cup, allowing the milkweed again to set in there without the little caterpillars falling in. I really don't like to use foam plates for the environment, but these were left over from a preschool art project. They're actually really great for keeping control of the frass. They dry and you can brush them off, and they can be washed and sanitized and just reused over and over again. You can fit quite a few of these cups and even the gallon jugs in the enclosure. And the great thing is it actually helps to weigh it down from shifting in the wind. After seeing a monarch butterfly flying around the yard, I knew it was time to take in some more stems with eggs on them. I usually take a few minutes to look over all the leaves and cut out the ones that have any insect damage or look questionable. There are many types of insects, aphids, ants, earwigs that can hide in the little crevices. That little area at the top with two tiny leaves, I usually just pop those right out because sometimes insects hide in there. I also will just wipe them down with paper towels to make sure everything is removed from the leaves. And you can see the little pile of leaves that I decided not to go with. I want them to have the freshest, cleanest leaves, little babies. So here are the fresh milkweed leaves with the eggs on them, clean water ready to go into the enclosure. You can see an egg on each of these leaves. Probably in this bunch there might be 7 total. Usually the eggs will hatch within 3 days, and then for another 10 days the caterpillars will continue to just eat and grow until they're ready to go up and form their chrysalises. And then again, 10 to 14 days later, we have a butterfly. In this way, monarchs have a fairly predictable timeline. I like to keep the new eggs that I put in towards one side of the enclosure away from any of the hanging chrysalises. When the butterflies emerge, they tend to drip some fluid from their wings. It helps to keep a hygienic and healthy environment by keeping them separate. That's also one of the reasons I bring the eggs in batches rather than continuously bringing in new eggs all the time. Yesterday, when I woke up and opened the shade, I was greeted by this beautiful orange male monarch butterfly, and then one over there in the back near the zipper. When they first emerge, they are wrinkly and they have to pump fluid into their wings. But right now, it looks like they've just been sitting in the sun a little bit to continue drying off their wings. They'll do this for a couple of hours and just hang and be peaceful. When they are ready to leave, they will be fluttering around the cage very excitedly, and it usually takes about 6 to 8 hours. So I let them out in the afternoon so they'll still enjoy the sunshine and find a safe place to be. These are the empty chrysalis casings. They're very clear and transparent. About 2 days before they emerge, their crystals will turn very dark black, but then the day before they emerge, you'll actually see the outline, the orange and black markings of their wings. The butterflies do not need to find a food source or nectar for the first 24 hours, which is helpful to know if they emerge on a rainy day. They usually aren't active on rainy days anyway, so they would just stay hanging in the enclosure, and then the next morning when the sun is out, I unzip the enclosure and away they go. When you wait until the butterflies are ready to go, releasing them happens so fast I don't always capture it, but I'll try to do a short the next time they fly away.